Congresswoman, can you talk about the importance of, not just yourself, but obviously we are very friendly with Congressman, fellow freshman Representative Maxwell Frost, who is also basically adhering to the same principles of you got to fight fire with fire. You cannot just sit back and allow the old guard to basically run roughshod over, the millennial generation, the Gen Z generation. You got to not just fight, but you also have to be able to rally a lot of people. We saw what Justin Jones was able to do today at the Tennessee State House. He didn't go by himself. He went there with a cadre of people, thousands it would appear. The more that people see the boots on the ground, the more I think the recognition of the inevitable generational change, if you will, is going to happen. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we are definitely seeing a shift. I love my class, so in love with my class, the best class in the history of the Congress. And I am not saying that because I'm biased. It is just facts. And we absolutely brought down the average age of Congress just by swearing in once we finally got sworn in after 15 votes. And listen, my class is full of folk. I mean, we are qualified. We're a really, really qualified group of folk. But we are definitely younger. And most of us sought our qualifications simply out of frustration, right? You have a Maxwell Frost who is a Gen Zer. And it was interesting when we went through orientation, we had a portion of it that we did at Harvard. And there was a presenter that talked to us about just the mental stress that Gen Zers have endured that is unlike anything from any other generation. And I never thought about it in the way that this presenter presented it, because clearly we have all lived through it as well, right? Everything Gen Zers are going through, we've gone through too, because we're older. The difference is that hasn't been like the entirety of our existence, right? The idea that I never had to do an active shooter drill when I was in school. Yet there's a generation of kids that have only grown up having to do those. And so this is a generation that is fed up. This is a generation that has decided that they're going to speak up and speak out. This generation is full of a lot more activists than even my generation. I think the level of frustration started to spill over with us, right? I think that so many of us have been engaged in the Black Lives Matter movement. And really, that's where a lot of my activism came from as a civil rights lawyer, deciding that that was the space for me, as we were really seeing so much police brutality. But now, with all of the school shootings and this idea that, and I'm saying school shootings because those are the streets that a Maxwell Frost came from. But even when you think about what happened to these two Gen Zers in the Tennessee House, they dared to speak up, and both of them were activists, and their activism led them to decide that they needed to legislate. And I applaud them, because for some people, it is very difficult to make the connection. But I think that this current generation of activists understands that it's not good enough just to hit the streets. Now, we need to hit the streets, and we definitely are about that life, right? But understanding that we now have to take it a step further. And so I think that that's why it's easier for these types of legislators, younger activist legislators, to do an outside-inside game, right? What they were able to do was bring more attention than, they probably even imagined to this issue, but they had organized right there in Tennessee, right? They were in touch with those organizations. And so that's what I think you see a lot of us doing. As it relates to the old guard, I will tell you that even with my ascension, right? A historic ascension, it's never happened in the history of the state of Texas that you had a Black freshman legislator that ends up going to the U.S. House. But my predecessor, who at the age of 87 decided to retire, specifically said to me that it needs to be you, because it needs to be someone who has experience, but also someone who is younger and energetic. She really believed that. She said, there were a lot of older people that wanted to run. There were a lot of older people that did run in my race. But even she recognized that there's been a change in Congress, and we've got to get this younger energy in. And I think that some of the old guard is starting to see that. I really do feel blessed to have an opportunity to serve with a Steny Hoyer and to serve with a Nancy. But they both stepped down from leadership. They had been in leadership for the House Democratic Caucus for years, right? And in their 80s, I'm anticipating that retirement is nearby, right? And so even they are saying it's time for new blood because this fight looks a little different. So I don't really feel like we've had to fight against the tide very much in the U.S. House, nothing like what I experienced in the Texas House, which was a constant fight to get them to do anything. And right now, all I'm getting is complaints about the fact that I'm not there and the fights that are being waged and how there's a lot less organizing that's going on in the Texas House. And so people, including my pastor was complaining on Easter. He was texting me and saying, we don't have the level of access that we had when you were there. Like, he's happy that I'm in Congress, but he's like, we need somebody there that is going to stay in touch and make sure that we are attentive and we can get down there and raise hell, when necessary.
Yeah, this is something I've talked about a lot. Like, you always hear this revolving door of politics, and usually it's referring to Capitol Hill and corporate lobbyists and that whole nonsense, But I have this idea that the best revolving door is between the grassroots organizers and legislators. And when we talk about these gentlemen in Tennessee, that's exactly what we're seeing. And they are almost like these Gen Zers that are just not having it anymore. They're just not having it. But what's amazing is it seems to be that this is like you refer to your class as your class, but like this new young people getting involved seem to be the first class of organizers that we're seeing in like mass getting involved in electoral politics. And I love that revolving door. Like, I think that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way we can merge the inside and the outside together.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about even some of like our first weeks in Congress, even before we swore into Congress, Maxwell, he had a press conference and, he had March for Our Lives there, right? But this is an organization that he had legitimately like worked for and worked on the behalf of. And so those relationships are invaluable when you are making that transition, right? And your experience, it gives you the voice and the conscience of the people, right? You can get so disconnected in DC. It is very difficult for me. Every time I come home, I get a little teary-eyed because I just don't feel as connected to my district because we are in DC so much. And when we're there, it is a constant. Like, I have no control over my schedule. I'm usually out the door by no later than 8:30 a.m. I'm lucky if I get in the door by 9 p.m. and I've got to get up and do it all over again. It is like every minute is slated. And usually there's not even a lunch that is slated on my calendar. And so when I get to come home, that's when I get re-energized because I only do this for the people at home. But it is very easy to get disconnected from them. And I get very concerned about, do they know that I'm working really hard? Like, do they realize that like I can't be home every day or can't be home every week? But when I come home and they're, we over communicate in my district simply because I want to make sure that they know I am working. You may not see me, but I am always thinking about you and I am always advocating for you and I am always working.
I think that it shows in who you are and what you do, but just something I wanted to point out is that friend of ours, Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, one of the things that she has done that we thought was great, actually, we had thought about it campaign-wise, was she closed down one of her offices and instead now has a bus. And she uses the bus and has office hours in different locations. And just is able to really get around and be available to more people at better hours. You know what I mean? It was just really, and it's been very popular.
No, I am very aware that she decided to do that, and we didn't know what we were going to do because rent is really expensive.
Exactly.
It is super expensive.
Yeah.
And so thinking about, how to use the MRA, which is our budget, I was like, what do I want to do? But we did decide to do an office. What we decided to do, and luckily I have the most compact district in the state of Texas. we decided that we were doing mobile office hours in every single city that is located in our districts, which I have about 12 cities. And so luckily I have really great working relationships with all of my city electeds and things like that. And so we do robocalls, we send out emails, and we basically tell whichever city that we're coming to the city, and they can go ahead and visit us for mobile office hours so that they're not only limited to showing up in our office. And people are liking it so far. But I also wanted to see if there was a portion of my district that really probably deserved its own separate kind of satellite office in addition to my main office. And luckily I don't feel that way. So that makes me happy. But they're really liking that we're coming out into the community to meet with them.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.